Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Today we're talking about product liability and government standards. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Many of you may recall a very tragic incident a couple years ago where a bus crashed on Christmas Eve in the snowy highways in the middle of the snowstorm of British Columbia. Unfortunately, many people in the crash were killed or severely injured. The surviving members of the bus crash sued the manufacturer of the bus because the bus did not come equipped with seatbelts. And although seatbelts are not required under federal law, the argument that they were making was that despite the fact that there is no federal legislation requiring them, it is still nevertheless an industry standard in modern times that buses come equipped with seatbelts, and that the failure of the manufacturer of the bus to include those in its product design amounted to negligence, notwithstanding the being in compliance with federal law. The case was unfortunately dismissed and the lawsuit was not allowed to proceed. They sought leave to the Supreme Court of Canada, which was also dismissed. And this case does raise very important issues. We see this all the time with legislation in Canada. Governments are extremely slow to respond to changes in our society, changes in scientific research, or just changes in technology. And we know the value that seatbelts have. And the evidence was that had people been wearing seatbelts in this bus crash, the consequences likely would not have been as devastating. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And just because Transport Canada hasn't updated its regulations to bring it in line with modern safety standards that are used in other jurisdictions doesn't mean that a manufacturer can't be found negligent on the basis of the failure to adhere to those safety standards. The whole point of having negligence law is to ensure that private actors, not state actors, are held accountable for decisions that result in harm to others, where that harm is objectively foreseeable and caused by the negligence. And unfortunately, in a case like this, there's no opportunity to analyze the way in which the failure of the government to update the legislation to bring it in line with current science and current regulations in other jurisdictions played in the role that ultimately led to the deaths and injuries. It's unfortunate that the Supreme Court of Canada didn't give guidance to people who are initiating lawsuits, especially when it comes to product liability, where the government has failed to legislate or has failed to legislate in a timely fashion. This would be a way for the Supreme Court of Canada to create a stopgap in circumstances where the government just hasn't acted quickly enough. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court of Canada really missed this opportunity to make people safer and to make people feel accountable for the safety of others. Hopefully, the Supreme Court of Canada gets another opportunity to review this incident and this type of case, but unfortunately, it will likely take another serious tragedy before that will happen. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. I'm Kyla Lee at Acumen Law Corporation. Thank you to Brazen Bull Creative for putting together these videos. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.